Okay, algebra of happiness. Father's Day just passed. Um, I think, like a lot of people, I have a complicated relationship with my father. My dad was pretty selfish and married and divorced 4 times, as far as we know. And I was the son by a second marriage. He had another daughter by his third marriage, who I've actually become quite close with. But, at the end of the day, my dad left my mom and I and moved to Ohio because he got a promotion. And I saw my dad mostly in the summer and during the holidays. And I've kind of never forgiven him. And also, something that I think moms do, and I recognize accidentally, and it's usually the mom that's the single head of the single parent household, is my mom sort of weaponized me against my father and used to send very, very aggressive messages through me to my father, and then my father would respond equally angrily, and it kind of would ruin the weekend or the time I was spending with my dad. And my mom sort of, I wouldn't say turned me against my dad, but there's just no getting around it. When your parents get divorced and you're living with mom, you're going to probably see, I think, dad as kind of the bad guy, and I certainly did. And also, he just was so not generous with money. He had a nice life economically. We did okay, but it was definitely a strain. And I look back on it now, and I think one of the reasons I try to be, I won't even say generous, but promiscuous with money, was I was just so fucking turned off by how cheap he was. Um, anyways, I had a lot of issues. I never didn't speak to my dad, but I didn't feel very close to him for a long time. I resented him about, with just a little bit of effort, he could have been so much of a more of a positive force in my life. But this is what I did and what I would suggest you do. If you have a great dad and it's all like shadowboxing and football games, and he showed up every week on the sidelines for you, then great. Then you're not going to have a problem being good to your dad. And if you aren't, then it's your problem. But for those of us, like most people, who have a father who is flawed or maybe doesn't fit the current version of what it means to be a dad in the Hallmark Channel from 2025, what has helped me is I ask myself, I go to basic evolution, and that is, was your father better to you than his dad was to him? My dad, and I didn't know this, my dad never complained about this, but I found out from his sister. My dad was the oldest and living in Depression-era Scotland, and his father, it sounds like, was an alcoholic, and his father was physically abusive. And she outlined one instant where my grandfather, my dad's dad, came home drunk one night, woke him up, and beat him. Can you imagine being a child and you get woken up by the guy who is supposed to be your protector and beats you? So my dad never beat me. Was never fit. He came close a couple times, and I was very scared of him. I think it was like the shark in Jaws. It was the unknown that was more scary than the actual shark. But he was much better to me than his dad was to him, which means he checked the dad box, and that is, he made the effort to be better to me than his dad was to him. And my dad did make an effort. He would, when he was in Chicago and heard I was somewhere, he would fly me out and take me to museums and try and find something to do with a 14-year-old. And I've gotten much better at remembering the good stuff and then putting all the bullshit aside. And something that has been an enormous unlock for me, not only with my father, but with all of my relationships, is to not keep score. And what do I mean by that? Instead of thinking, oh, I'm his son, he owes me a lot, and on a scorecard he came up short, I just said, all right, what do I want to be as son? Who do I want to be as a son? And the answer is, I want to be a loving, generous son. Then hold yourself to that standard and don't keep score. Don't think about, well, did he do enough to deserve a loving, generous son? That's not the point. The point is, do you want to be a loving, generous son? If the answer is yes, then just be a loving, generous son. And if your father dies, which my father will soon, my father's 95 and in hospice and basically has the kind of mental complexion of a baby right now, doesn't recognize anybody. Am I going to think to myself, I just don't think there's any way I'm going to think to myself, I was too nice or too generous to my dad. And if you're better to your dad than he was to you, that's fine. I think that's kind of what it means to be a man. And then in a nod to him, if he was better to you than his dad was to you, then you need to be better, and hopefully you will be to your own sons. But if you're like me and have a bit of a complicated relationship with your father, what I would suggest is just an enormous unlock is put away the scorecard, put the bullshit aside and just be the son you want to be and enjoy Father's Day with your dad.